Hey, love. Welcome to No Matcha, No Mama, the podcast where we pour a little matcha and a whole lot of truth. Each week, I sit down with someone I admire, founders, healers, creatives, and friends, and we sip a matcha I've made just for them based on what they love. I like to do everything with intention, from the ingredients in your cup to the conversations that we have. And the show is more than just about talking. It's about exploring how we can truly thrive through all the mess and magic of being human. Here we start with matcha because how we start matters. So today's guest is my sister-in-law, Lindsay Shane. You are more than that, though. We've become like best friends over the years. It's been almost a decade since I met your brother. But we both share a deep love for everything health and wellness, and we're constantly geeking out over the newest supplements, trends, treatments, everything in the health and wellness space that make a big impact in our lives, right? So I thought it was really fitting to have you on, and you also have an incredible journey to share in the health and wellness space. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
So I made you a matcha. It's like vanilla with cinnamon and collagen protein with some coconut cashew milk. Ooh. So I make matcha obviously every morning, you know this. It's very grounding for me. It's my ritual. It's what sets the tone for my day. So I wanted to ask, is there a ritual in your life that sets the tone for your day?
Absolutely. My mornings really anchor me and really set the tone for the day, the same ways that yours do. And so every single morning starts with some sort of self-care practice. What that looks like has definitely shifted over the years. Yeah. I have a lot of different rituals and tools that I use. And for a long time, I had this really extensive morning routine that included all of them. It was breath work and meditation and journaling and gratitude lists and pulling cards, you name it. And over time, that regimented schedule just started to feel less like self-care and more like this to-do list that I had to do every single morning. And instead of grounding me, it actually created a lot of anxiety. So now I approach my mornings with a lot more flexibility and usually wake up and check in with myself, check in with thoughts that are going on in my head, check in with my body and my mind, and then choose some sort of practice from there. So carving out time in the morning is a non-negotiable no matter what, but what that looks like if I choose to go into movement or if I go into stillness, depending on how I'm feeling, is based on what that check-in looks like in the morning and what my body and my mind need. And that really shifted a lot for me. So I'm always very intentional about how I can shift my energy and set the tone for the day, but it doesn't have to be one practice or one ritual. It can be all of them. It can be none of them, or it can be at least just one to take time for myself and kind of get myself in the mindset that I want to be in for that day.
And how does it usually make you feel if you do your rituals, or if you don't do them? Do you notice a difference?
Absolutely. My energy is different for the day. If I get up and immediately start moving into my day without carving out even 5 minutes to sit and check in with myself, I notice that I'm a little bit more scattered, that the thoughts look a little bit different. They might feel a little bit different, that I'm not as grounded, and then I can't show up the way that I want to show up in every other aspect of my life. So that has really become a non-negotiable in terms of really realizing how much that sets me up for the day.
Yeah, I completely agree. I started out needing to journal and meditate and kind of rigid about it. And if I didn't get to it, it was almost like I felt guilty.
Yeah.
But now that I have 2 kids, I don't really have a lot of time to myself. So if I can carve out 5 minutes to do something, whether it's a meditation or a little breath work or a journal or even just making my matcha, lately both of them have been waking up a little bit later, which is nice because then I have a little bit of time in the morning to take a breath before I get into my day. So I'm with you on all of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in the world that we live in, we're told all the things that we should be doing in the morning, and life happens and things shift. And I think it needs to be a little bit more flexible on what works for you. And maybe you do need to jump into your day because the kids need attention or you need to get them out the door for some reason. So then what does that practice look like when you can carve out that 5 minutes, if it's not in the morning, and giving yourself a lot of grace with what that is, and making sure that you're choosing behaviors and rituals that just really support you in whatever your day looks like.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be a little bit later.
Yeah.
Like right before a workout, take 5 minutes to ground in, or I don't know, just do something that makes you pay attention to what you're feeling. Right?
Yeah.
Like a little bit of quiet time.
Absolutely. And be able to shift that energy the way that you want it to be. Mm-hmm. There were so many times that I, because I was putting so much pressure on myself to meditate every single day, it was actually just creating so much anxiety versus choosing another form of, or another behavior or another way to move energy around that just felt so much more in alignment with what I needed that day. So I just think there has to be so much flexibility, and also trusting your intuition of what your body and your mind are asking you for.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Completely agree. So, make
sure I sip this.
Yeah, take a sip.
Oh, it's so good. We like matcha the same way, so
yes.
This is perfect.
I knew what you liked. So I wanted to start by talking a little bit about your surgery journey, and because there are a lot of people out there going through health problems and surgeries, and it's not talked about. So can you share a little bit about your journey and what you wish more people knew about going into any surgery?
Yeah. I have had 7 major surgeries in my life. 4 of those took place between the ages of 25 and 34. And every single one has taught me something different. Not only about the body's incredible ability that we have to heal, but also about resilience, both physical and emotional resilience, grief, trust, surrender. Healing is not linear at all. It will test you on every single level. It will likely take longer than you think it will. And it is incredibly layered. There are physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual components that are all interconnected. And you're not just recovering, you're rebuilding. And that rebuild requires so much grace and kindness and patience and compassion for yourself in ways that you didn't know that you needed. And there may even be parts of yourself that start to reveal, that really needed attention, that you didn't even know needed healing as you're going through some hardship. So it is very challenging, but there are so many different tools and healers and people and modalities that are available to us to help us through that process. And trusting in your body and listening to your body and making sure that you are giving it what it needs and what it's asking for as you're going through that is going to be incredibly important. And then also, setting up some pre and post surgery protocols, if you can take the time to prepare ahead of time, would be really helpful as well. Whether that's setting up your space or the support system or tools that you want to use on a physical level and emotional level, just having a little bit of preparation will really make you feel very held in the moments that feel very hard.
Yeah. So you moved here without a lot of the people that were close to you. How did you build your healing ecosystem from scratch? And now that family is closer, what is different, for better or for worse?
Building my healing team meant that I had to be my biggest advocate over and over and over again. Even when I was exhausted and just felt completely defeated, I had to keep trying to find the right doctors and practitioners and healers. And it took a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of curiosity. And I had to pay attention to how people made me feel. And did I feel seen? Did I feel heard? Did I feel validated? And also, did I feel safe with them? There have been countless experiences where I felt dismissed. I had my symptoms were minimized. I was told everything was in my head. I was told that someone else knew more about my body than I did. And unfortunately, this is a very common story and it happens quite frequently. And not only is that invalidation frustrating, but it's also very harmful. And I had to go through those experiences and continue to search for the right people that I wanted to create, that I wanted to support me and have be around me. And there are incredible doctors out there and practitioners and healers. And I am so grateful for the team that I've had, but it took a lot of trial and error and it took a lot of curiosity, but I knew that I needed to surround myself with people that were willing to fight with me, that were willing to look beyond what the normal was and find the root cause, and that believed in the life that I wanted to build for myself and the life that's possible to live, and were able to hold hope for me when I was unable to hold that for myself. So just ensuring that you're surrounding yourself with people that are very supportive for you and that make you feel very safe and hold space without judgment is going to be crucial on your healing journey. And that was how I really built my team. And then luckily, having my family move back and be close to me. I mean, you know how incredibly close we all are, which is incredible. And it provided this other layer of stability and love and comfort. And I'm so grateful for that. But that's not always the case with everyone's families. So I think the bigger takeaway is really finding your community, and whether that is your family or whether that's your chosen family, but really making sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that you genuinely feel supported by, that you feel really safe with, you feel very validated by, because this journey is hard. And whenever you're facing anything hard in life, and having that support system is going to be like really, really crucial in your process.
Was there anything your doctors didn't tell you that you wish that they did?
I wish that my doctors were more honest in how much of it is still a guessing game. We have more tools and tests available to us more than ever. And there's more becoming available, on a monthly, yearly basis, which are incredible. But there are still a lot of diagnoses that are made through a process of elimination. And I wish that there was more humanness and transparency and how that uncertainty was shared with me. And that would have made me feel more like a partner in the process versus a passive patient that was just kind of waiting for somebody to figure me out or figure out what was happening. And listen, no one likes the unknown, and especially when you're in pain or you're scared. So I understand why our system leans towards definitive answers, but there are just so many variables, and symptoms present differently in every single person. Our bodies are very complex, and I just think there needs to be a little bit more transparency in all of that, and like I said, a little bit more humanness in trying to find the root cause or trying to find the right path of how they're going to help me heal.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in Western medicine, they're not really looking always for the root cause, right? Like for me, back to going through lots of different health issues, I struggled to figure out what was going on with me. And I went to doctors and they ran tests and they're like, nothing's wrong with you. And I go, something is wrong with me. Someone please help me. No one could figure it out. And then I saw someone in Eastern medicine, Debbie Kim, and she completely shifted the way that I was feeling because she put me on supplements. She helped me realize what was going on in my body, and she figured out the root cause of things that were causing me discomfort and eliminated certain foods, whatever it was. But again, Western medicine doesn't look for the root cause. So it's hard because society just goes to regular doctors constantly to be like, what's wrong with me, when they don't always figure it out. And then people are left feeling distressed and upset and confused because they can't figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I know that journey for you. And it is a very common journey for a lot of people. Yeah. And I've experienced it as well. And it is very frustrating. And I think there's time and places for both. I think there's, obviously I've had so many surgeries. And so the Western side has saved my life.
Oh yeah. I'm not trying to diminish Western medicine at all.
Not at all.
I think it's so important, and it does things that we can't do in Eastern medicine, right? So I'm in full support. It's just weighing out what each one does differently and what each one is better at, right?
Yeah. And realizing and having that discernment too of why I'm going to this doctor. And there are more and more Western doctors that are very much more patient friendly and starting to look a little bit more at the research, not all, but I think still finding some of those that are open to alternative plans versus just the direct route that they were used to, but why you're seeing somebody versus why you're seeing somebody else, and knowing that they're there to help when you need, but then there might be these other people, these naturopaths, functional medicine doctors, acupuncturists, herbalists, just different people in the Eastern space that can really help you. But that is an investment, and it's also not so accessible to people, which is also really frustrating.
It takes time.
It takes a lot of time. It does. It's worth it if you're willing to go through it. And also if you've tried a lot of different things and nothing has really worked and made you feel better, then it might be worth kind of exploring a different type of practitioner that can really help you and get to that root cause.
Yeah. So post-surgery, were there any tools or products, little things that made your recoveries just a little bit easier?
Yes. I think there are a lot of tools and simple practices that go overlooked very easily. The first thing is that you need to carve out time and space to properly heal. Healing requires us to slow down, and it requires true rest. And so making that a number one priority to make sure that you have the time and space to heal, I think is the biggest. The second part of that is when you are going through surgery, you've likely been cut open, you've been exposed to anesthesia, you potentially have taken antibiotics, or you are taking pain medication, and your body is incredibly inflamed. So it is vulnerable and it is working really hard to heal. So post-surgery, the goal would be to reduce inflammation as quickly as possible and as much as possible.
And what would be something that you would use to reduce the inflammation?
So there's three different things that I do surrounding inflammation. One is I'm very careful about what I'm putting into my body. So a lot of time that's food related. So being on an anti-inflammatory diet is really important in removing certain foods that cause more inflammation. Then also how you prepare your foods also is really important. Digestion takes a lot of energy. And you want as much energy as possible to be healing all of the tissues or whatever it is that needs repair into your body. And so how you prepare, making sure that you're cooking really, really cooked foods, nourishing, warm foods that are easy for your body to digest is really, really important. So not what you eat, but also how you eat it. And then there are post-surgery, I've always also done a glutathione push. So to help protect my brain from the anesthesia, they won't give them in the hospital, but once you're out of the hospital and cleared, I would say go to a trusted clinic and do a glutathione push. And I also take glutathione every single day to help with the detox pathways and just cellular support as well. But that's always been a go-to. And then one of my favorite tools that not everyone has access to, but if you do, going into a hyperbaric oxygen chamber is a game changer. It lowers your inflammation. It is delivering more oxygen to all of your tissues. It helps the healing process and repair and regeneration so much quicker. And it really has sped up my healing process. So it is an investment, but it is worth it if you can do it. Yeah. And Ideally, if you can do a few sessions before to lower your inflammation in your body before you even go into surgery, that's really helpful. But if you can only do sessions afterwards, then that's totally fine too. But I usually say like 5 before, 10 after, or you can do 5 before, 5 after, or even just 10 after would be really, really incredible for your body.
Yeah, I did a session. Remember when I had that insane sinus infection?
Yes.
I think I had it for 2 weeks. I refused to take antibiotics because I don't like antibiotics. They ruin your gut. I obviously had to take a Sudafed before because you're not allowed to go into the hyperbaric chamber if you can't breathe out of your nose or because of the pressure, right? So I had to pressurize before by taking a Sudafed. It worked. I went in there. I think after the first session, I immediately felt better. And then I did 2 or 3 more sessions and it was completely gone. And it was literally the only thing that made it go away. I tried supplements. They weren't working because it was super intense, but that chamber was like life-changing.
Yeah, it's really, and if you sit and talk to people that run those chambers, and those, like the stories that come out of it are just wild. And also, not even from like a physical level too, but because it's delivering so much oxygen to your brain, there's been so many people that talk about how much it's helped with depression or anxiety. So it really is one of the best tools that I've found to use for any type of healing. I just know that it's not that accessible.
I wish it was more accessible because it should be something that more people have access to.
Yeah.
So it's life-changing. And those machines are super expensive. So it's not like you can just buy one on your own and stick it in your house, right?
Yeah.
And you need to know how to use it too. So
there's a lot of different technicalities around it. And I tried a few different places before I found one that I really trusted. And the experience is different too. So you definitely want to go to somebody that is reputable and trusted. And also, keeping in mind that there are so many different modalities that are available to us. And really, whenever you're going through any type of recovery, there's just so many different options that you can go through. I mean, I also added in acupuncture, which was incredible. I also work with, a functional medicine doctor that has me on a full supplement protocol that was really helpful in rebuilding my gut and my immune system. Movement is really helpful, different body work therapies. There are so many different things that you can really do to set yourself up for that recovery phase.
And healing takes more than just time. It takes the willingness. So what helped you stay open when it would have been easier to just shut down and not do any of it?
I think it was my mindset and my curiosity. I have always believed in your body's innate ability to heal. And I think it just needs to be heard and listened to and given the proper support in order for it to do what it naturally knows how to do. And so trying so many different modalities, and if something didn't work, I tried something else. And I constantly asked people that I trusted for reputable sources and places and clinics and ideas of things that I can do. And it does take time and it does take effort and it does take just trying different things. But I knew the life that I wanted to live and I knew that healing was possible. And by surrounding myself with the right people and being so curious around what else I could heal or what else I could do or how I could feel really just kind of kept me in it. And then also there were times, when I did feel like shutting down entirely, that I had to make space for those emotions. When you're going through any sort of hardship, there's very real emotions of anger and grief and frustration that you have to make space for. And I had to feel those things without judgment and allow them to move through. And then when I was ready and curious, what did that teach me? What did I let go of? How have I grown from all of this? And I think staying in that specific type of mindset, knowing that there were going to be hard days and good days and horrific days, and just kind of letting them happen when they needed to and not judging them and meeting myself where I was at every single day allowed there to be less pressure. and allowed me to really stay in it and stay open-minded to how much better I could feel.
Yeah, sometimes healing means letting people in. Sometimes it means keeping things or people at a distance. So what would you say, can you think of a boundary that you set that really protected your peace?
I have become very intentional about who I surround myself with. And that started as a practice probably almost 10, 12 years ago, when I've always known since I was younger that I'm very highly sensitive to other people's energy, and everyone carries energy. And I had to become highly aware of my bandwidth and really honor my capacity and be really, really honest with myself about who and what situations actually felt supportive or in alignment or that were serving me. And so an easy way that I started doing this was just paying attention to how somebody would make me feel. So after an interaction, and let's say I was going out to dinner with somebody or I got off a phone call, I would sit there for a second and I was like, how do I genuinely feel in my body right now? Do I feel energized and calm and validated? Or do I feel drained and exhausted and dysregulated? And that simple check-in gave me a lot of clarity around what was fueling me and what was draining me. And then I was more easily able to say no to things that I didn't need to go do in order to protect my peace and protect my energy. And especially when you're going through something like a health challenge and you need every bit of energy towards everything that you're dealing with, you really do need to protect your peace and you really do need to protect your energy. That becomes very, very important. So starting to notice the people and the situations and being really conscious and really intentional about removing yourself from those people, from those situations that just really are no longer serving you. And not every relationship is going to be perfectly reciprocal, right? I'm not saying cut everybody out, but I think starting the practice of being really, really aware about what that feels like in order for you to put boundaries in place, in order for you to protect your peace and protect yourself.
Yeah, I think the closest thing that I can relate that to that just happened to me was obviously after giving birth. Right?
Yeah.
Is there are days where you feel really overwhelmed. There are days that you're really tired. There are days where you just don't want to see anybody at all. So I became really good at saying no because people would be like, well, I want to come over and say hi to the baby, and be like, you know what?
Yeah.
I need some time to myself today.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference when you put boundaries in place, even with people that you're closest to. Just being able to say, no, I'm good. I need a second. Or, you know, maybe come by tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so necessary. It's so important. And there's ways to deliver it that aren't, you know,
rude.
That don't upset the other person. And if they do, that's also okay. It's a boundary for a reason. And you are protecting yourself, and the people that want to surround you and want to support you will be completely understanding of that. And hopefully they have their own boundaries.
Yeah.
Because hopefully, you know, they've done some of these practices too.
Yeah. And if you have a partner, make them aware of your boundary too. Like there were days where we had so many people over in the early days of when Roma was born. And at the end of the day, I go, that was too much for me. Like I am so drained. We can't do this again.
Yes.
It needs to be less people for now. I think there was one day where we literally had like 8 people over, kind of spread out.
That's a lot.
And we were just hanging out on the couch, but it still felt by the end of the day, I had so many hormones pumping through my body, and I just felt so not myself and so tired and so emotional. I go, no.
Yeah, good.
We can't do this anymore. So just make even your partner aware of what your boundaries are, because your partner doesn't have the same limit.
No.
Like Justin is not a woman, so he doesn't know how I feel. Like he's completely fine seeing all of his friends. He's not experiencing the emotional roller coaster that is postpartum. So in any situation where you're feeling depleted or you're feeling not like yourself after a surgery, whatever it is, saying no.
Yes. Say no.
Just say no.
Yeah, just say no. And that's it. And that's a complete sentence. And it really does wonders for your life.
Yeah.
And there are compromises, of course, especially when you're in partnership of what that looks like. But to your point, making other people in your life aware about what you have the capacity for. But that also starts with awareness.
Yeah.
Because you have to check in with yourself
and understand what's going on.
Yes.
Because if you don't, you're not going to be aware of what's causing that feeling.
Yes.
You could be at the end of the day and be like, I don't understand what's going on.
Right.
I don't know what made me feel this way. I feel dysregulated.
Yeah.
So,
but that check-in is so important, and it'll give you so much information about yourself. And it shifts and it changes. Obviously, like post giving birth, there's so many things happening in your body and demands on you, as a mom, and taking care of also, your son too. Like there's just a lot there. But so your bandwidth will change too. And that's okay. And so then those boundaries change, and that can be communicated differently. But being really honest and being with yourself and with anyone else around you is going to protect you.
Yeah. So there's physical healing and then there's emotional healing. How do you move through both without getting lost?
Ooh. I think it goes back to giving yourself a lot of grace and compassion and patience, and really being cognizant of what this journey might look like. So sometimes that is when things feel very overwhelming, it's important to chunk some time down. So instead of thinking about the next few weeks, months, year that you need to get through, how about if you just get through the next day or the next hour or the next moment or the next breath? And that starts to kind of like shift the overwhelming feelings that can come through both the physical and emotional components of it. And remembering that everything is temporary. So the good and the bad are both temporary, and creating space to not have as much judgment around what those days look like, and who do you need to support yourself with? What are the things that you need to do in order to not get lost in it? And also to that point though, healing is, like I said, not a linear journey, and it's a lifelong process, and you're never going to be perfectly healed. And sometimes when we continuously go through the physical and the emotional and the mental healing and spiritual healing, it can take on a life of its own. And that's where sometimes I think you can get a little bit lost in it and sometimes it can create this story in your head that something needs to be fixed before you can live. And that was something I really needed to realize myself, because then there became a point where I kind of just needed to put all the work down. I knew that I was always going to work on healing myself. I'll heal myself for the rest of my life and continue to grow and evolve and change and learn and be curious. But there also came a point where I just needed to stop doing all of the things because it was reinforcing this narrative that I had to be fixed. And I think that was really important in order for me to just try and find some joy. Try and find, even if it was a moment, it wasn't the expectation it needed to be an entire day or an entire week, but how can I find joy and love in these small moments in order to help reinforce, why I'm doing this, why I'm healing. I'm not healing so that I can experience more pain. I'm healing so that I can expand my capacity to hold joy and love. And I think that was a different mindset that I also needed to get into in order to not just stay stuck and lost in what that healing process looked like.
Okay, so which brings me to your body, because I know that played a really key part in reconnecting with it. So for people listening, especially moms who say, I don't have time to move, what do you say to them?
I get it. Life is full. It's demanding, especially if you are managing a household and a career and kids, and you're doing all of the things, I understand. And what I would also say is every single person can carve out 20 minutes. It is about choices. It is about priorities. And there are so many workouts or different types of movement. It doesn't need to be an hour in the gym. It doesn't need to be a structured workout routine. There are so many ways that you can integrate movement into your life, and so many at-home programs that have created classes that are 20 minutes that are incredibly efficient. You can find the time and just do it. It doesn't need to be perfect, but whatever you can find, it will shift your energy. It'll shift your relationship towards movement. So I do understand the demands that are placed on us. And like I said, if you're managing so many different aspects of your life, but if you really want to shift that and be intentional about your time, you will be able to find 20 minutes. Everyone can.
So back to different movement practices. Was there a way that you used to move that doesn't feel aligned anymore?
Oh, yeah. I used to be obsessed with really intense workout classes, HIIT classes, boot camps, sculpt, you name it. Anything that was fast-paced and intense, I did. And at that time, too, I was working in a job and in an industry that demanded a lot from me. I was working 16, 18-hour days, and on top of that, doing some of these workout classes. And I was chasing a release that I thought that I would get from these classes, that I thought would decompress in some way. And really what happened was I was just compounding so much stress in my body. And it took me a while to notice how much the cortisol spikes that I was getting from these classes were actually completely dysregulating me versus helping me. And your body doesn't know how to distinguish between good stress and bad stress. Cortisol is cortisol. So however it spikes, and it's not to say that these classes, these intense, fast-paced classes are not effective or they're not helpful or that they're unhealthy, but they do you put your body into a very, very high cortisol state. And if you are not rebalancing that in some way, and let's say for me, I was going into then an incredibly stressful job, my nervous system was so dysregulated and it was not sustainable. I was completely burnt out. So once I realized that connection, and I made a lot of other changes in my life at that time too, but once I realized that I could still have a very effective workout, that I could still build strength in a different way with lower impact movement that didn't spike my cortisol as high, I saw a huge change. It was a game changer for me, and I was able to gain so much more strength, and I felt so much better going through my day, and I didn't feel as drained. And that's not to say that now I don't love one of those classes every now and again. But for me, it was more so staying in classes and in movement that felt a little bit more nourishing, that still were challenging and provided results, but that didn't give me those really, really high spikes that really affected my nervous system.
So has there been a movement practice or shift, I guess you just talked about the shift, that really changed how you feel in your body?
Yes. I would say two. There's Pilates and there's dance. Dance, I've been dancing since I was 3 years old, so that expression of movement for me has always been really incredible and something I've always needed to incorporate into my life. But Pilates also, over the last 5-6 years, I always did different reformer classes, but I just started to do a little bit more, and I feel incredible doing those workouts. I just think they're incredibly effective, and I truly have gained so much strength in my body in ways that I, didn't know were possible, and it just was so effective. And there's also now all of these at-home programs so that if I need to fit in 20 minutes,
you can.
I can, and I feel really good. And it's just made it so much easier to incorporate movement in my life in a way that just feels really, really nourishing to my body.
Yeah, I was doing Pilates postpartum up until now. I just started going back to the gym, but those at-home workouts, I do Melissa Wood Health. Just 20 minutes, even if you have it during nap time even, right? Just something to get your body moving is game changing.
It is.
Yeah. So I imagine going through surgeries brings up a lot mentally and physically. Were there any challenges that really stuck with you?
Yes. I want to touch on an emotional challenge first. There was a story on a loop going on that I really had to become very aware of. And it was that I was broken and that something is wrong with me. And after many surgeries, and even having to repeat 3 of the same surgeries because they kept breaking, I started to internalize this belief that no matter what I did, and no matter how well I took care of myself, that nothing was going to be good enough, that I was never going to be good enough, that I was not going to heal, that my body just kept failing me. And I used the surgeries as proof of all of that. And I really had to start looking at the emotional layers underneath that and start to look at where that narrative even began, which happened to be a very old story of feeling broken or not good enough, and start to shift my thought process around that. And instead of looking at my body as betraying me and as failing me and as being broken, that it's just trying to communicate with me. And I just need to listen, and I just need to listen without judgment and start to shift the way that I listen to it and that I speak to it and that I help support it. But that loop was something that I couldn't escape for a really long time. And I think it made things a lot worse. And it just started to, I started to see things around me as proof of why I was broken versus starting really the healing process of believing in my body and believing in its wisdom that it wants to share with me. So that was a really big turning point for me. And then I think on a physical level, there were periods of time I was told that I couldn't do movement. And movement is one of the biggest ways that I transmute energy in my body and move through a lot of my life. And so to be told that I was never going to be able to do things again, or that I was never going to get certain strength back, and to actually be sitting here today and being probably the strongest I've ever been is incredible. But to go through that process of feeling that way and being told those things was definitely a journey in itself. And I just had to really not give up hope on myself and on my ability to heal and my ability to shift what my life was going to look like.
You mentioned that you see and speak to your body differently. What would you say? How do you speak to it differently, and how do you see it differently?
I have so much gratitude for my body now that I didn't always have. I was so hard on my body. And I think, being a woman in this world also adds another layer and component to all of that. But I used to really beat myself up. And then after having so many surgeries, I also have scars all over my body. And I became really embarrassed by them. I would think about being in a bathing suit or being intimate with a partner, and I would just have these feelings of anxiety and of what I thought, beauty looked like, or what I should be looking like naked, and they started to become more proof of my weakness. And I started to look at them so shamefully and with so many insecurities. And now I look at them and I think about how much they've held me through, how much they have supported me and helped me heal. They are my warrior wounds, and they are not proof of my weakness. They are proof of my resilience and of my strength and what I can get through in this world. And having that shift was huge. And then also there was a significant amount of body image work that I had to do on myself. One of the biggest practices that I did that shifted a lot for me was standing in front of a mirror completely naked and going through every single part of my body and thanking it for what it allows me to do.
That's beautiful.
And it took a lot of work, and it took a lot of repetition, and it took me, rubbing my hands on my scars and saying thank you. Thank you so much for what you've done. And it really did shift a lot for me, but it took a lot of work. It was not easy. And that's not to say that sometimes I don't look at the mirror naked or put on a bathing suit and be like, oh my goodness, those are a lot of scars. But I allow them to come up. I'm human. And then I go back into my practices, and I go back into what I know the truth is and what I've redefined beauty to be. And I just am grateful. I'm just so grateful for my body and for what it's been able to do.
So what does thriving look and feel like for you right now?
Feeling safe in my body, feeling aligned and connected. I think it's about it doesn't mean that there's not going to be hard days or hard moments. I think this life is very challenging, but now it's about knowing that I'm so resourced that I have the ability to move through whatever hardship is thrown at me. And that is incredibly empowering. And that allows me to thrive and appreciate in the present moment, appreciate the love, the joy, even if it doesn't last long, even if it's brief, the laughter, because I know what those hard moments have felt like. So thriving is really just allowing myself to feel the joy and the love that is so available to us.
I love that. So years into your health journey, you transitioned out of your career in entertainment and into the health and wellness space. You became a holistic health and wellness coach. But while you were also helping people live healthier and more balanced lives, you also started resetting their homes, and it started in the kitchen and the pantry, and then you eventually started full-on organizing entire houses. So let's talk about the connection between your space and your state of mind. How do you see your physical environment affecting your mental state?
There's so much research behind how your physical environment affects your mental state. And there are a lot of people that aren't as aware of it until there's a shift that happens. But our spaces and our environments, they can ground us, they can inspire us, or they can also quietly reflect our overwhelm. And oftentimes when our environments are chaotic, it's mirroring some sort of chaos happening in the mind as well. Not always, but it's definitely a component. And when you have an organized space in various different parts of your home or in your workspace, there's different ease and clarity that becomes available to you. So for example, if you are working from home and your desk is cluttered, or your space where you're working in your office is cluttered, and you're noticing that your creative flow isn't there as easily, it's not coming to you as easily, or that maybe you're a little bit foggy, maybe you're a little bit fatigued. I do think that by making sure that your space is cluttered free and taking the time to organize it, just see if that might shift what happens to you. I mean, there are countless stories and situations that I've heard from people that after an organizing session, after taking the time to organize their spaces and their environments, how much better they sleep, how much better they feel. And there is an energetic component to all of that. So it really does affect you, even if you think that it doesn't. And there are really simple things that you can do in order to even just start that process.
So what's the difference between organizing for control and organizing for peace?
I'm laughing because you know me and I organize for both, because I'm a very type A person and I love control. But I think that when you look at the energy behind those two things, they're very different. So organizing for control is based in fear and anxiety, and organizing for peace is based in love and respect. Respect for yourself, respect for your home, respect for your space, and for your life. And so I think that if you think about how an organized space could actually create more peace in your life, then how incredible is that ripple effect of where else that can help you. If you feel peaceful in your space, then that gives you energy back to put into all the different aspects of your life, whether that's with your partner or kids or with yourself or with your work. And that's really the goal in creating that peace for yourself, is really where can that energy then be redirected?
Oh, yeah. I have to reset almost every night before I go to bed, because when I walk downstairs in the morning, I don't like to see toys all over the floor. So you've organized my home. Everything has a place, or is supposed to have a place. It's not always in its place because I do have children, and I give myself grace for that. But at night, I even find myself organizing the counter, the console underneath my TV, because before going to sleep, I don't want to see a bunch of stuff
Clutter.
Just strewn everywhere, because I have to clean up after everyone.
Yeah. The bedroom is huge. I think that sleep is one of the most crucial parts of wellness. And I mean, especially if we're going to tie that back to surgery and recovery and healing, it is essential. You cannot heal when you are not sleeping. So, but also that space, if you are sharing it with a partner, the connection that happens there and the conversations that potentially happen there and the quality of sleep. So having a cluttered-free bedroom is like genuinely one of the best places to start in order to make sure that the energy that's flowing in that space feels really good.
So in your experience, what tends to be the thing that holds people back from beginning the process of organizing?
Overwhelm. 100%. It's this idea that they have to do everything at once and that they have to get it all done. And that is incredibly overwhelming. And so if you are going to your closet, let's say, or your bedroom, and you want to go through all of your clothes and all of your shoes and your dresser and your nightstand and all of the different things, if you think about having to take out every single thing in your entire bedroom
it's very overwhelming.
It's very overwhelming. But if we chunk that down to say, I'm just going to go through my shoes today. I am just going to go through my dresses or my suits or my sweaters or my activewear. Or in the dresser, I have 6 drawers and I'm going to choose 3 of them. And if you carve out space, however you want to space it out, whatever your cadence looks like, depending on how much time you have during the week, but it'll all get done. You just have to chunk it down instead of thinking about it as this one big, huge project, because if you do that and you do pull everything out, everything does have to go back at some point, and then you're probably just shoving things in cabinets and drawers and it's not actually getting organized. But I think it's more about being just doing it in smaller steps.
So is there an area of the home that gets overlooked, but that makes a huge impact when it's organized?
I would say the bedroom that we just talked about is a big one, energetically and for sleep, in order to have energy for other things. And then the other space that I think makes a huge difference is the kitchen. It's often a very communal space. It's where you're gathering to cook a meal or have a meal. Oftentimes there's also, if you're in a home that has other house help and you have nannies or housekeepers or chefs or whatever it is, everyone is using that space. The kids are even using that space too. So having that be organized and making sure that you have a place for everything is going to help be efficient in it. So when you're cooking a meal, that everyone knows where everything is, and you're not constantly searching for something. Or if you're trying to get your kids out the door in the morning and making lunches for them, you also know where everything is. So I think that makes a really big difference as well.
Okay, so let's get to the good stuff. Some tips and tricks that people can use. What should people ask themselves when they're looking to either let something go or keep something?
If it's an item, I would ask, when was the last time you used it? And do you have plans to use it? Sometimes there's items that are seasonal or holiday related or something like that. But are you going to use it? Does it have any sort of energetic tie to you? Does it support the person that you're trying to be? And same thing with clothing too. If you've tried something on multiple times and have never kept it on when you're going out or when you're going to a meeting or when you're getting dressed, it might be time to let that thing go. If it has sentimental value, that's different. You can create memorabilia clothing, and I never, encourage people to let go of things that genuinely hold value to, or, like that means something to them. But are you actually going to keep it on? Are you actually going to wear it? Are you actually going to use it? Or do you feel like you need to hold on to it for some reason because of a past version that you were, or somebody that you think you should be versus the person that you actually are? And I think that those are some good questions to ask yourself when you're going through the decluttering process.
Is there a system or a swap that makes a house instantly more organized?
If we're in the closet, if you just get matching hangers, that will immediately make this space feel more organized. Obviously, then if you go into the categorizing and the color coding, that's going to help even more. But even just matching hangers will make that feel a little bit different. And also, if you're trying to save space, then getting, like slim velvet hangers are really good. And then the other thing I would say is if there's a lot of drop zones happening all over the house, kind of designating an area for a drop zone and putting a basket there, what is really helpful throughout the week, so that then you're basically calling it like a put back bin. And you put all the different things out. Life gets crazy, life gets hectic. You're not able to put everything back into their homes every single day, but at least carving out maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes, depending how big the basket is, every week to making sure you're putting things back in their places also helps make a home feel a little bit more together, so that you don't have things sprawling all over the place, but that they're at least in a bin that then needs to be, handled at some point during the week.
That's a good one. I should implement that at home. Although I'm not sure that I would clean it every week, so.
Kind of have to schedule it into your calendar.
And dedicate time.
Yeah, and dedicate time to it. But oftentimes, a dining table becomes just a drop zone for everything. And then you're trying to have you're trying to have a meal, and there's stuff all over and mail and all these different things. So having a basket there, might be a really easy way to at least have everything in one place. Nothing gets lost. But yes, you still have to dedicate the time to then go through it.
So when you walk into somebody's home, is there something that you do on every project?
I think there are systems that I know from doing this for so many years that are more easily maintained, and I categorize everything because that's a necessary element to the organizational process. But I think I really need to understand how somebody lives, because what works for somebody may not work for somebody else. And it's really about creating systems that feel very intuitive. So if you are in the kitchen and you're going to make a meal, where you're reaching for things naturally should be where they are, if they can be. Obviously, kitchens are created differently, but same thing of getting dressed. How you get dressed and the layers of how you get dressed should be really intuitive of then where you're placing certain things in drawers. But, I won't just implement every single system that I do in every single home, because it just doesn't always make sense for that person or that family and the way that they really operate or move through their lives. I'm not going to put jars in their pantry that they have to decant all of their flour and sugar if they're never going to do that. That doesn't, that's a silly thing. It might look pretty, but if you're never going to use that, then that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, what's the point?
I think it's really individualized and really about how that family or that individual lives and what makes sense for them. Maybe they need broader categories versus a lot of smaller individual categories. Maybe there's more house help around that also need those broader categories to be present versus, something really, really micro sorted. So I think it does change.
So what's one organizing trend or myth that you cannot stand?
The myth is that you have to have every single everything be matching in your house. Every matching bin, every matching label, every matching everything in order for you to be organized. That is not the case. It is aesthetically more like it's beautiful. And if you have the resources to do that, then great. But you can still be incredibly organized without having to have every single matching bin be everywhere. So that one definitely, I think, prevents a lot of people from getting started or feeling like they're organized when they actually already have containment in their house. That can be really helpful already. And then the trend that I hate so very much is about the fridge. So there's this whole thing that I see on socials all the time about getting home from grocery shopping and taking every single little thing that you just bought out of its original packaging and then putting it into separate matching containment and putting it in the fridge. And that to me just feels like a complete waste of time. Not only now are you having to take time to wash everything to then put them into these other containers. Most of those containers are also plastic. So you're taking something out of plastic to put it into another plastic container. And then you also, the next time you go grocery shopping, have to wash those containers before you then do it again. You don't need a salad bar in your fridge. You don't need all these pre-made yogurt parfaits with certain straws and all of the different things. That's not what's going to keep you organized. If you like to meal prep, if you have time for those things, if you like them, go for it. I just think it is very time consuming and not necessarily that helpful.
And then people watch those videos and they feel like they feel pressure to almost do that.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, they're doing it. I should be doing it too. I don't have time for that.
No.
I don't have time.
And they should, and I agree, they make you feel guilty and it's just completely unnecessary. I think there's a few containers that are helpful. People really like the egg containers. There's also like a berry container after you wash your berries that like holds the water so they're not sitting in the water. So there's things like that you can buy. But anytime, even when I've organized a client's fridge with all the matching containers, they all end up coming out. They just do. It's just not a very sustainable process long term. And so I think you have to be really honest with yourself of, do you have the time? Grocery shopping is already a lot. Making meals for yourself or for your family, you don't need to add that extra layer. And it just has kind of become a bit ridiculous in how much also money people are spending on these containers.
Agreed.
Yeah.
We're in agreement.
It's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Well, thank you so much for everything. You've been so vulnerable, and I love, love, love talking to you about this stuff. But before we go, I want to leave with a couple of reflections.
Yes.
So if you could go back, what's something that you would tell your younger self?
2 things. 1, life is happening for you, not to you. Look at every single setback, redirection, challenge as an opportunity for growth. And the second would be that you are enough, and you always have been, and you always will be.
I love that. Affirmations. Mm-hmm. Affirmations are so big. I tell my kids affirmations every single night. Dino now goes into the room and tells Roma his affirmations.
Oh, it's so
the
precious.
Cutest thing.
It's the
and
best.
We're going to keep doing it because your voice becomes their voice.
Yes.
Yeah. And looking ahead, is there something that you're doing today that you hope that your future self thanks you for?
Listening to my body and really creating habits and forming relationships and being really intentional with what I'm doing now to create the life that I want to live. And I think that my future self will be very happy that I'm taking the time to do that now and to be listening to what my body and my mind needs, because there's so much wisdom in all of that. And I think it'll really create the life that I want to live.
I love that.
Yeah.
I want to end with a little prayer.
Okay.
May we carry what we need, release what we don't, and stay open to the magic that is unfolding. Thank you for sipping your matcha and sharing your heart with me today.
Thank you. What a beautiful conversation.
Agreed.
Thank you for holding such beautiful space for me.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening to No Matcha, No Mama. If you love the episode, share with a friend, leave a review, or just come say hi on Instagram. My handle is @DINADL. And you can connect with my guest, Lindsay Shane. Her Instagram handle is @Lindsay Shane. And you can also check out her wellness and organizational offerings at her website, lindsayshane.com. And remember, thriving takes intention. See you next time.